while I throw up a Twitch ad. We'll be back soon. For the YouTube people, I guess it doesn't apply to you. Okay. So let's take a look. The other thing I wanted to model out is the relationship of the player state. Maybe focus a little bit more on this and how this comes into play. We have wallet, inventory stats. Also, let me just double check my Now I don't know what changed in here. Since this is all encoded, this is kind of hard to read and tell what changed actually. It's not a great message, but just something myself. Oh, deleted. Oh, that's what it was. Oops. It looks like Godot is maybe the thing that kind of freezes up my computer a bit. Yeah. Yeah, because that shit is stuck. Let me see if I can get back onto the Godot screen. Maybe what I need to do here is float this. Thing is, OBS isn't even running on this computer, right? Yeah, no, it's not. So I actually don't know why it has problems with this. What I might also opt to try is I might just try not using a tile window manager just to see, like, hey, do we still have performance issues? But anyways, so wallet manages money. That's really all it does. So now how does, oh, I see. So what I would need is I would need to connect these nodes up to these nodes somehow. Oh, B. Go back here, grab this, send this over to 3. And then we're going to take a look. We have on, so let's take a look at player state. Okay, hold on. Right here's where we want to be. Selected. Okay, that changes modes. That changes modes. Attempt purchase. On attempt purchase, player state.buy item. Aha. So that would be here. Or I could maybe put that into its own thing over here. Oh, sorry. On attempt purchase, no. Is up here. And then this is buy item. Yeah, on attempt purchase goes to buy item. Which returns result and handles like show message. I think it's fine. So player go update inventory. Okay. Maybe just make that white. I think that's fairly clean. Yeah, that's fairly clean because this only reaches out here once. Whereas before it was like back and forth a lot. Now it's just there and it comes back as a result. Right. This is good. I think this is clean. What is buy? Oh, sorry. Then we have to look at what buy item does. My buy item is inventory full. Not spend gold. So that's when stuff happens here. Oh, in player state, I said inventory was item data, but that's not true. Inventory is an inventory. Which actually is an inventory, which is a resource. We're just going to use the class names. There's only one of them. So give item. Actually, all of this, give item and spend gold. Yeah, this can be cleaned up. We can remove these. These can be removed. And we can just use them directly. Gold is public, so we'll leave that there. But these can disappear because they're only being called over here. And give gold. I don't think it's used anywhere. Oh, it is. Oh, yeah, when we sell things. Right? And is inventory full? Yeah. So all this can come back to here. So this actually does remove. It does keep this file very small. So let's go fix this up real quick. And then inventory.give item. Or inventory.add, I guess. Yeah. Right. That should still work. Let's test it real quick. Wallet, not spend gold. Non-existent, function on. Wallet. Oh, spent. Fair enough. Guess maybe pin that for now. And instead of wild spend gold, just wild.spend. Nice. So I guess that does help. Because otherwise the wallet code, wallet, How many lines is this? A 21? I guess that would make this file 21 lines longer. Which is pretty significant because it's 48 lines. That make it 50% bigger. I guess wallet is okay. It's not how I have it right now. But I can either split that up in my game or just not do it that way in my game and not care that it's not exactly the same as the prototype. That's cool. Okay. So yeah, I mean, we could kind of go, I guess, like this. But I think it's just going to make things look a little bit more messy than they need to. That's basically how it goes. Well, actually, no, because it goes to player state. It doesn't have access to those directly. So that would go to here. There's actually a better way to do this, I guess. But that's fine. So this calls out buy item on player state. Right? Is inventory full? Oh. Sorry, that's another one I can inline. Like I could add more lines here to clean up the graph, and then it would be like more linear looking. So player state buy item. Sorry, why is this going to player state? No, 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 no. This is on player state. Sorry, this should be kind of how I had it. Jeez, what am I trying to do here? So buy item. Inventory full. Inventory full has money. Actually, so we mixed a couple of different things in this chart, but that's okay. Maybe what I should do is connect this with a, oops, dotted line with no arrow. We could add colors here, maybe for some distinctions. Abstracts purchasing through buy item. So the purchase logic is in the player state, which is a little bit weird, but we need to know if we can do these things, right? I guess the other thing here really is arguably, I got it. Arguably, instead of buy item, this could be can buy item, which would return a result back to the shop, and then the shop would handle the actual purchase of this. So we'd go shop screen. And then here we would take the gold and then give the player the item and then update the display. And that responsibility would come out of here. But this would just say, hey, can we do this? Which would also remove this, you know, failure, this like kind of result-based thing on spend for the wallet. Oh wait, this is on wallet. That if we don't return a result from here, then we just silently fail, basically. That's the only other way to do that, is just silently fail. But this also takes the money. So because this takes the money here, we add the item here. But the API is a little bit weird. The API is a little bit inconsistent because we're taking money here, we're adding items here, But then when we take the item away, we take the item from here. Right? So even though this works and this is fine, let's try for a minute doing this the other way and just say if wallet.gold is less than amount, or for amount is greater than wallet.gold, then return does not have enough. Otherwise return success. And then what we need to do here is player state give item, and then player state spend gold. Final price. And then that keeps like purchasing logic here, essentially. And then this, instead of buy item, should be can buy item, which sounds like a Boolean. Checks if player can afford item and has space. Otherwise returns a result. Returns a result of Y or Y not. And instead of saying success, we'll rename success to can purchase. Right? That's weird. Oh, if result is greater than 0. Which, another way of saying this, by the way, is I can say not equal to can purchase. Oh, sorry, result. So if it's not can purchase, instead of using greater than, because that's a weird thing for an enum, even though it works, this reads better. We don't use item data? Oh, that's interesting. That is interesting. That means we don't need to pass this in anymore. Oh, this is missing a method. There is no spend gold money. Right, and so, and then give item also doesn't exist. I'm surprised it's not complaining about. Function give item. Now these don't do any checks. But technically they should. Well, this one does checks. I don't think this one does checks. Oh yeah, it does. Oh, so we don't need to do checks. Lovely. Now the API is more consistent. It makes more sense because now we have give and take, and now we have give and take, right? And to make this even more consistent, maybe instead of spend gold, I should call this take gold. That way the API reads give item, give gold, take gold. So let's do that. And even the spend, right? To be clear that there are checks going on in here, I could rename spend like spend if available, and then add inventory.add could be add if has room or something like that. So I'm just gonna leave it like this for now. But those are some other ideas that I have. So let's test these changes real quick. Not enough gold. Inventory is full. Perfect. So this is shop screen and player state. Clean up API. Clean up. Make API more consistent with give, take actions on player state. Allow shop to implement shop logic. Shop screen. That just makes the API more consistent. Now there's like a more of a round circle thing going on. All right, okay, and that's a little bit more apparent here. And what I can do here, actually these can be circles. Be a solid line. Oops. Solid line with an arrow on it. And then for this, I'm going to use a dotted line. Not with an arrow because it doesn't really flow that way. Oh, interesting. Hmm. I thought it had something to do with the speed that I do it at. I don't know. But whatever. That's fine. Okay. Add biologic graph. Subgraph. Right, very cool. Oh, I forgot to push it. Ah, let's push it. Right? Yes. Okay. So now that we've got that, I think we cleaned up pretty much everything. We got rid of our signal bus, right? Yeah, signal bus is empty. We don't use it. That's kind of nice. So basically, wallet, we can think of wallet as like a data structure that allows us to add and subtract money, and it does all of the bounds checking for us in one place. So it handles exceptional behavior for us in one place. We still have to do checks other places, but if we didn't have that, hmm, I don't know. It's fine. I think this is fine. Okay, now the player stats thing is, I think, something I need to figure out also. I think that's the part of this I actually haven't spent any time on. So how do we handle the player stat stuff? Because there's no point in having items in the item shop if there's no player stats. So let's take a look at player stats. We have the stats dictionary. Let's throw this over to monitor workspace 1. Oh, it's pinned. That's why. Let's go back to 1. And how are we going to monitor this? So let's go to here and go to our inventory, and maybe somewhere in our inventory we need to have something like stats. Oh, something else I do want to do here. I'm gonna open a browser tab. Let's do Gemini. Now that I have an account here, Working on an item shop implementation. I'm working on an item shop implementation. Items give player stats. Right now, player stat is an enum with values like strength, health, and speed. I have an apply function to apply stats to the player state. How should I store these stat modifications so I can display the buffs to the player? It's a very long question. Using enum for stats is a great start, but storing actual modifications like the buffs requires a data structure that pairs stat type with a value. To make this display friendly and easy to manage, I recommend using a resource-based approach or a dictionary of arrays. Here are the two best ways to handle this. The buff resource cleanest. Oh, my stat itself can also be a resource. And then we could give it an icon. That's interesting. In the player script, apply item active modifiers.append. Oh, and then we have active modifiers as an array. Option 2, dictionary of modifiers, most scalable. If you want to track multiple items affecting the same stat. Yeah, I don't really need that per se. How are they? What are they doing with their dictionary? Oh, I see. Strength 510. No, I don't need that. Displaying buffs to the player. Since you want to show these to the player, you should use a UI buff bar that listens for changes. Use a VBox container or grid container for the UI. Create a small button that takes a stat modifier and sets texture rect. Use the make custom tooltip function to show description string when a player hovers the icon. Decoupling. Your player state doesn't need to know where the numbers came from. It just asks the buff manager for the total. Transparency. Because you're storing the values in a list rather than adding them to a single variable, you can be more specific. You can remove specific buffs later, like when a potion wears off, without breaking the math. Oh, that's true too. If buffs wear off. Well, if buffs wear off, they're generated from the inventory. Unless I have, I see. This does get more complicated unless I have something like a potion that you can use one time to give like a temporary burst of speed. But I don't think we want to do that. I think to keep things simple, we'll make the buffs permanent till the end of the playthrough, and they'll just be things for having the item in your inventory. Just having it. You don't have to use items. I think is the best way to handle that. But a grid view is actually pretty darn good idea. Base stats. I'm trying to think of how I would do this. I guess if we want to do it dynamically, we would have a grid and then we would add text fields for each thing. Before going bonkers, let me start with a simple implementation. And the way I'll do that is over here on the player inventory menu. We'll have inventory gold label, right? We've got menu container here. So in between these two, I will add a new just label for now, stats label. Oh, sorry, I'm calling it stats label here. Labels what we want. We'll move it up here. Stats label. We'll align it, text align it to the right so it lines up nicely over there. Oops. Quick load. Want it kind of big, I guess. So let me get stuff from this gold label. Save as font. Oops. Font 24 pix right. That way I know it's aligned to the right. Oh, this one's not aligned to the right. It's actually text aligned left, isn't it? It is. I just lied to myself. That's fine. Oh, that's fine, because we can still... I'll make it work. Doesn't matter. Something like that, right? Let's quick load this font. I guess the way we do this is by not making it expand and making it shrink to the right. Right? And then I think we're still gonna want... Let's make this unique. Font. Oh, that's not even in there. I don't have to make it unique. Okay. This looks kind of close to here. Is there something like a spacer? I could do something silly and add another label. It's not really what I want, but... Well, the other way to do this, I guess, would be to parent this. Reparent to a margin container. And this margin container would have some overrides, theme overrides on the top margin. And we would add like an extra 16 or 32 pixels here. Yeah, that's a better way to do it. This way I can see, I can like customize the way I want it. All right, just like that. Cool. Awesome. That's cool. So now what we gotta do is write some code on my what? Fill in the blank. On my what? So this margin container, I don't think I'll put it on the margin container. I'll add a script to the stats label, and that'll be a stats display. And that's how we'll do that. Let's go here. I How come I cannot attach a script to a label? I have to put it on here? Oh, I can't do it on there either. Oh, because I'm looking at the wrong side. It's over here. Attach this. This will be stats display. I'm not going to call it label because it might not be a label. Also, this is going in shop, scene, shop. I got to make a new folder called stats display only because this might become its own scene later once the logic gets a little bit more hairy. Very cool. That's created and done. And let's open up stats display. Right. Extends label for now. So we have stats, which is good. I think this is gonna have to be renamed. We don't use this anywhere, so that's cool. I can just do base stats. And then export var modified stats. Is that right though? Let me look at, so that's stat. I did have a thing somewhere. Was it item data? Modifiers. Oh, player modifier. So I already have this player modifier thing. I see. So what I need here is actually an array of player modifiers. Right? And that's what I need. And then what? To communicate down, normally we would just call directly a function on that thing, which we can still do. I can go to my shop screen script, and why is this yellow? Unused? Might not be used. And then what we're gonna do here is grab a reference to my stats display. I'm gonna call this display and not label, because again, I might change that from a label to something else later. Instead of a label, we'll call it a stats display. Oh, the reason why that's not working is because class name stats display. Ta-da, okay. So, how do we do this? Function display base stats, which would be a dictionary of stat. And actually, wait, hold on. I'm trying to think. Yeah, this makes sense. This makes sense. So I'll just pass the information, only the information that's needed, which is going to be the base stats and, oh, and the modifiers. Right? And what we're going to do is we're going to do simple iteration here. Var stat names equals player state dot stat dot keys. And for I in range 0, comma, stat names dot size. Doing this because I think I also need the index, right? Basically, I want to iterate through the stats in the order that they appear here in the enum to keep the order consistent. And then we'll pull them out of the dictionary in that order. Yeah, that'll be tricky actually. Because I don't know what the modifiers are going to do because they're an array. Right? So I can pull out the mods. How do I do that? I think, ooh, that's hairy. I think I have to do linear search on the player modifier. So maybe my player modifier is not right. Hold on. Let's look at the code sample they gave me here. Stat modifier. Stat type, player stat. Value, icon, text, or string. Yeah, but in my case, it's just, ooh, in my case, it is just a function of the original. So it's not showing. Okay. This is why this is difficult. This will work for just applying it, but then to show the information to the player, it's not as straightforward. Because to show the information to the player, we have to show our work in the equation, but in this case, the equation is just a function that could do literally anything to that stat. So how would we do that? Oh, the only way to do that would be to have a before and after. That's actually fine. We can do a before and after and just do a subtraction. Yes, we can do a before and after and just do a subtraction. So we would have var before equals base stats subscript I. And then we have a var after equals base stats. Sorry. Oh, after. This is why it's hairy, because because we need to kind of sort our modifiers by stat. That would be the best way to actually do it, would be to sort our modifiers by the stats. And then we could, I don't know, there's not that many. There's really not that many though. So, so that's before. Yeah, this isn't terrible. So what I'm going to do is say var after sum equals 0. I think I can just sum them. In this case, that can't be right. What I'm thinking is here I would go through the list of all the player modifiers, and then if the stat matches, call the apply function. and get that number from the apply function. Oh, right now it's just returning original. Right. Right, because there's different kinds of modifiers. Yes. Sorry, wrong one. Oh, what in the heck? No, that's probably right. It's probably just that this, yeah, has some kind of script. And I think right now I said I wasn't going to bother with the stat stuff. So if I look at my item resources and I look here at my modifiers. Oh, I'm using an add player modifier. Oh, I see. That's right. That's how I did this. So we have probably under scripts, player modifier. There it is. These are all the modifiers I have. Adding, multiplying, and the base one. That's right. So that's fine. Then, what are we going to do here? So we'll loop through and we'll say for modifier, or for m in modifiers, if m dot stat is equal to I. Ooh, this is why it's I here is not a good idea. We'll say stat index. Right. Then original float. Okay, then we'll say m dot apply, which is going to return us the value, right? And that's what I'm trying to figure out what I need to do. M dot apply before is the original, and a player state. Oh, it does need a player state. Wait, why does it need a player state? A whole player state seems like quite a bit. I don't think these need player states actually. Like add modifier, for example, is probably just, yeah, taking the original plus the amount. It's not even using player state. Multiply is probably doing the same thing, right? So do I need player state? Why would I need player state? Player state is probably way too much information, if I had to guess. Because player state base new values off of current player state. But what does that mean? Player state gives us access to inventory and wallet, which we don't need. I think all we need really is base stats. Right? It gives us access to can buy item, give item, take item. There's a lot of interfaces that we don't need for applying stats, right? So I think that means that this has to not be player state. And this has to be our stats. Is there also, I'm just gonna ask Gemini, does Godot have type aliases? I said Godot, but hopefully they know I mean GD script. No, GD script, good. Does not have a formal type or alias keyword like TypeScript or C++. However, Godot developers use a few common Godot style patterns to achieve the same result, depending on what you're trying to alias. Create classes. Yeah. Aliasing via inheritance. Class name extends, blah blah blah. Why it matters for your item shop. Since you're working with enums and stats, you might be looking for a way to define a damage stat that is just a float. Because GDScript doesn't support aliasing primitives, you have two choices. Stick to type hints or a resource wrapper. Does C# have it? You can use the using keyword. Trying to decide I should abstract my dictionary of stat to integer or just pass it around like this. As a classic architectural crossroads in Godot development, while passing a raw dictionary is fast to code, it often leads to technical debt where your UI and inventory systems become brittle. Here is a breakdown of whether you should stick to the dictionary or move to a wrapper class or resource. The class for the raw dictionary, the case for the raw dictionary, use this if your game is small, like a game jam or a prototype, and the stats are only ever read in one or two places. The pros are that there's zero boilerplate and it is extremely fast to implement, and it has a built-in JSON serialization. The cons is that there is no autocompletion, you have to remember the keys, and there's no validation if you accidentally add a strength value to a speed key, for example. And there are no signals. The UI won't know value changes until you manually tell it. The case for a stat collection wrapper. Use this if you plan on having an inventory, a stat sheet, and multiple items. Abstracting this into a stat collection, a custom resource or class provides type, safety, and encapsulation. Here's an implementation example. He's got the dictionary, he's got get stat, and he's got add stat and merge stats with another collection. And then he's got a signal for stats changed. The signal for stats changing is arguably a compelling argument because right now is that a compelling argument? I think in my case, I would actually want a signal in my inventory letting me know that the inventory has changed so that I can recalculate the stats. And that would go from the inventory to the shop screen. The other part of this too is that my shop screen is supposed to be a display, but it's also a model. Rather, it's also a controller, which I could split that out. My recommendation is to abstract it. In Godot, resources are the secret sauce. If you wrap your dictionary in a resource called stat collection, you can save a TRES file for a sword and shield directly in the editor. Your item resource can simply have a property var bonuses stat collection. Your UI can simply connect stats change signal to redraw itself. Look at my items again. Hmm. Yes, yes, and yes, this does have to be an array. The reason we use an array instead of a dictionary is because if we used a dictionary, it would match one stat to one modifier or one value change, and we want to be able to stack multiples, right? Hmm, that's a good question. Could not parse global class stats display. Yeah, don't worry about that. Okay. Right. So base stats. And I am thinking if I did abstract it, how would I do that? Oh. Yeah, see, this is interesting because oh, I didn't even think of that. If I go to my player state, which is probably over here, and I'll look at my stats, which I haven't touched, base stats, right? There's no validation here. So I can add multiple. Oops. How come I can't add here? Oh. Oh, okay. No, actually, that is pretty good. So you have to add them all manually, which is weird. Granted, that is weird. You have to add them all manually. However, you have fairly easy lookup. Right? So you'd have to. It's weird that you have to add them manually. Like it should be. No, that's fair, right? But I guess the way around that, right? Oh, you complain about that. Okay, you have to add them manually. Oh, okay. Well, if we have to add them manually, the obvious solution here is to do stat.health, right? Because the dictionary guarantees that there are no duplicates. And then if we initialize it like this, yeah, it gives us default values. So we don't have to add other keys manually. And actually, we now can't add a key. Oh. If we add a key, it'll clobber the old one. Okay. There may be reasons for this yet. This is still a pretty good starting point, though. It's a little bit troubling that you can accidentally add one, though. Trying to think of some things we could do if we had an abstraction, right? For example, if I had it abstracted as a resource, I could say health, strength, speed, and we could just hard code them onto the stat sheet as individual exports, export strength, export speed, etc. We could also have the enum. That would be like the best of both worlds kind of approach. We would also have the enum, and then the enum would give us a dictionary access, so we have dynamic access to this that we can kind of iterate through keys and stuff. Which would be useful for our player modifiers, which we're still using, we're still using the enum to store and retrieve values from. For now, I'm going to do the simplest thing for right now is to just pass the base stats. Maybe we'll want more later, maybe not. The other thing that we could do is we could abstract that into its own thing. And then we don't, that's like less refactoring that we might potentially have to do later. Even our modifiers, we could have an abstraction that would literally do those like sorting things for us. Although what I have here is probably more efficient than that. Is that true? No, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. That loop would just be in a different file where we could reuse it, but we don't necessarily have to reuse it. So we're just going to do this for now. And then for this, I have to go here and update the modifier script files. Player state becomes stats. Oh, original. Wait a minute. If I have this, I can reduce this apply function to only take the player stats and just pull out the original value, right? I don't have to pass the original value because let me see, how am I passing the original value now? Right, see this base stat index? I still need to know that. It's fine. Yeah, I don't really need these player state for anything. I'm actually gonna leave this alone because this change has nothing to do with any of this right now. Right? Oh, that's why we want to change this, because we don't have scope of the player state here. We only have player stats. Yeah, so we're gonna do that. Cut down the scope that this thing has. Player stats. Player stats. It doesn't really change anything here that much. It's such a small change, but it allows me to go like this and pass something. And then after sum plus equals this actually. Output plus equals stat names subscript stat index. Then we do base stats subscript stat, oh sorry, before plus before difference operand, which we'll define here. Difference operand equals plus if after sum is greater than before. Else minus, this doesn't handle the scenario where they're equal. But that's okay for now. Ugh. No. See, no, you can't add them. It's not gonna show the difference. It's gonna show the total modification afterwards. I'm gonna need more time on this. I'm also gonna need a break here. Let me see, what time is it? Yeah, I have some other things I need to get done today. So I'm gonna call it here for now. And then we can resume either later or most likely tomorrow. So it would be easier, like this modifier method that I have that allows me to do anything in the world to these values. It might be better to just make simpler modifiers that are just like, hey, add and multiply and divide and subtract, and just leave it at that instead of allowing, I guess, for percentages. But percentages like sound cool to me, so I don't know. So I guess the other way to do this, if I'm thinking practically here, the other way to do this, so I have this apply method. So I don't really, yeah, the apply method, and the apply method returns a float, by the way. So two things I could do here. Apply can actually apply it. And or I can do one of two things. I can either return the modified value and the delta, or I can have another function called like apply and another function called delta. And the delta function will show me what the difference is. Actually, I like that idea. So func delta original maybe what this should do is maybe like add modifier that will apply it, and then what would delta do? Right? So what I'm wondering is if it's mathematically correct to say apply, the default implementation for apply is return original plus delta, and then return amount, but you don't necessarily have an amount. And then this wouldn't return original, it returns 0. Yeah, so because amount goes to the individual modifiers, that doesn't make sense. I could also move amount to here. So I would think that every modifier would have like an operand and an operator, essentially. So you'd have some kind of amount always. But I don't know if that's a valid assumption. It's a little bit more decoupled to do it the way I have now. But yeah, you could do it this way, and then you'd have multiply modifier, then func delta. Oh, return amount. Yeah, see, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. It works for the addition, but then for this, we have to change the equation. So this would be what? This would be, and since apply returns a value, right? Minus original, is that right? Sorry. I accidentally repeated the equation. So we would return apply original base stats minus the original. Trying to think if that makes sense. So if we have an amount like 2.0, that's and we have a number like 10, that would be 20. Then 20 minus 10 is 10. So then we could say plus 10. So that works. Now what if we have an amount like 0.5 and a base of, and a base of 10. So we would do 0.5 times 10 equals 5. 5 minus 10 is negative 5. So the delta would be negative 5. So that makes sense. That makes sense. And then the same, and then, yeah. Yeah, that works. Okay. So then, what was the script I was modifying or I was editing? Oh, display, stats display. And then before plus difference operand, actually not even needed because we'll have here plus m dot delta before and base stats. Oh, true. Oh. Right, plus, sorry, this is plus equal delta. And then this is after sum. Before, I may have to put a space here. We're declaring output here. Oh, right. Sorry, output should be declared up here. Then we could say, oh right, this is the display class. It's not like a model. I don't know what the right word is. It's not like a transformation class, right? It's like a UI class, technically. So we go here. Oh, right, because it's on the label. So we're just going to say text equals output at the end of this loop. And now we need to call this display function from the screen. Inventory.update display. Sure. And then we're going to have to do stats display dot display player state. Oops. Player state dot base stats and player state modified stats. It's not modified stats. No, it's actually it's not modified stats. It's stat modifiers. So that's different. Modified stats would be the final result, which could also be cached somewhere, so we don't have to calculate them every single time that we use them, right? Let's run this and see what happens. But whether this works or not, I'm taking a break after this. Okay, we'll get this working. Not find stat, you're right, because this is player state dot stat. And fill out operands string and int. Oh, yeah, fair. Okay. I had a feeling this was gonna be funky when I wrote this. Plus equals stat names state. Yeah, so before for now, but probably want to use a format string, especially since it's got numbers in it. Non-existent string constructor. They got me. They caught me. So output plus equals stat name. Wait, did I make this up? Is there possible to do this? How do I use a dictionary in a format string in Godot? I think it's the dot format method. Yeah, this is dot format method. Okay, and it does work like this. Okay. Stat name, colon, before after. Oh my god, that's so much easier to read. Dot format, and then we pass it to dictionary stat name equals stat names subscript index stat index comma before after sum. Stat name is not declared in the current scope. Oh, right. Oops. Right, like that. Cool. What we forgot to do was to format this. And to put in here so we have 312. Oh, right, because then we never updated it. How does that happen? Hold on, we'll do a little bit more digging here. So speed potion does have a modifier with a speed of 1.5. So what in the heck is going on? Modifiers of m.stat equals that should still work. Let's do some printing here. Checking stat. Or displaying. This will be in right. Then we check all the modifiers which come from here. I'll add a print in here. No, it doesn't even go in. Well, it doesn't go into this part of the loop. m.stat player state.stat is equal to stat index. Doesn't even go into that loop. That's a very weird thing. M in modifiers. Am I not passing modifiers? Oh, I might not be. I am, though. Oh. Dumb. That is very dumb of me. I'm missing an entire layer here. So, two things. One is this was supposed to be the cached calculated modifiers here. That's number one. Number two, what I need to pass in here is the player's inventory, and then I need to iterate through every item in the inventory, and then I need to iterate through every modifier in the inventory. I'm taking a break. That's quite a bit, but we got some stuff done today. I'm happy. So that's why that's not working. So let me just make a note. Notes here of some stuff that we need to, whoopsie daisy, finish up. Never mind, let the wallet abstract the error handling for the wallet transactions. Transactions. Oh, I did spell it right, transactions. Okay. So what I really need to do is display player stats, cache player stats on player state. And then pass inventory to player modifier to iterate all modifiers on each inventory item. Which we could maybe do using a map. Maybe just map inventory to its bonuses to its individual bonuses. Which could be a function. It's not really a function of the inventory. Realistically, that's like a transformation that would happen by if we want to do it in more than one place, a helper class. But if we're only going to use it in here, we could do it as a helper method. Helper function. Oops, I did it again. As a helper function of the stats display for now. These are decisions that I'm deciding now, and then I just want to thought dump what I'm thinking now so I can kind of rebuild my thoughts when I come back next time. Look at this beautiful chart. This is beautiful. Very lovely. All right. Cool. All right then. I will catch you guys.